Welcome to Uncommon Geeks. Myself Vasant. I hope you all doing well. As you know, this is a continuation of my previous video where I have explained you deep copy and shallow copy. In case if you landed directly into this video, I would highly advise you to go back and watch my previous videos. I will try to add the link somewhere on the screen or also in the description. The reason being I have explained the fundamentals of deep copy and shallow copy in my previous videos, and I've also asked some common interview questions there. So do not skip that video. Please do watch it. Without wasting further time, let's get started. So if you remember guys, in the end of the last video, I had shown you how to make a deep copy and shallow copy using json.parse and json.stringify. Okay. And if you remember, I had also mentioned there are some scenarios where we cannot use json.parse and json.stringify. This video revolves around those. So, and how to handle such scenarios where json.parse and json.stringify cannot work. Okay. So I'll explain all of that in this video. It may be slightly longer, like my usual videos are around 9 to 10 minutes. This may go up to 13 to 14 minutes is what I'm thinking. So please stay with me guys, but I'll ensure by end of this video you will totally understand how JSON or passing JSON or Stringify works and when to use it, when not to use it, and when you cannot use JSON or passing JSON or Stringify, which one to use. All of that I'll clearly explain in this video. Okay, without wasting further time, let's get started. This is my first example, question number one. Okay, where I'm printing the values of both the test object 1 and test object 2. If I had to run through the example, what I'm doing is I've created one simple object with name test object where that has a key called sample date, to which I'm assigning the value of new date. Basically, new date returns the today's or the current date. Okay. And what I'm doing is here is, as you already know, if I do this test object 1 is equal test object 2 is equal test object 1, this will obviously make a shallow copy, and if I modify the test object 2, it will modify the test object 1 also. I'm not gonna repeat the same thing that I've done in my previous videos. So straight away, to avoid that shallow copy, we are trying to use json.parse and json.stringify. Okay. So where I'm passing test object 1, I'm logging test object 1 and test object 2. Looks very simple and straightforward. If you, any of you, if you know already know the answer to this, please do mention question number 1 in comment section and put your answer before I run the program. Okay. Now, those of you who still not sure what is the output, let me run it for you. But I believe most of you would be thinking this straightforward, and what you would get is sample date contains a date object. Since we are just doing JSON or passing JSON stringify, and after that we are not modifying test object 2, so value of this and this should be same. Like when you log test object 1 and test object 2, you are expecting the same output. Let's see what the output actually is. So it is actually looks like a same input. If you are not a keen observer, you will not be able to figure it out. So where both actually having the same value. Only difference is data type. First one is an object, second one is a string. Okay. So in the hurry of making converting a shallow copy into deep copy, if you use json.parse and json.stringify on those objects which contains date, then it will convert date into a string, rather keeping date object as it is after the deep copying. Okay. So my first advice is whenever interviewer asks you uh, how you convert a shallow copy into deep copy, in those cases when there is a date is involved, do not use json.parse and json.stringify. It will not work. Why it will not work, and in such cases which method to use, I'll explain in a while. Okay. But please keep this in mind. Interviewer will not ask you straight away in a simple example like this. What they will do, there will be a very big object, something like user details, some user location. There will be a deeply nested object. Somewhere they will be inserting this date just to confuse you. So be very cautious about this. Now we'll go to the second question. Second question also is pretty much same as the first question, but it is there are some more attributes I'm considering here. Okay. So where there is a test object one, an object which has two keys, sample function and sample undefined. So first key actually points to a function, second key actually points to an undefined. Okay, undefined in JavaScript you already know stands for nothing. If you declare a variable and haven't initialized with anything, then the value of that will be undefined. Console.log, most of you know this is a function. I have clearly explained this in my pure function series. In case if you have not watched pure function, I'll try to add the link somewhere on the screen, also in the description. Please do watch it. Okay. Now we have object which two keys, one points to function, another points to undefined. Same, we are trying to make a deep copy of it using json.parse and json.stringify. Then we are logging both. If you know the answer, please do mention in comment section. mentioning question 2 and your answer before I execute the program. Okay. In case if you're not sure what is the value, I'll show it. So this is very interesting, huh? In case if you're seeing this for the first time, you'll be astonished. What is happening whenever I log the object 1, you are seeing sample function which actually has a function on the right hand side. Sample undefined, you have initialized it to undefined, same is getting print. But test object 2 after json.parse and json.stringify, test object 2 is nothing, just an empty parenthesis. So we lost both the values. So why I specifically took this example is, again in a hurry of doing converting a shallow copy into deep copy in your very important project, you may end up doing the same thing. Okay. Once you do this, it will become very difficult for you to debug if you do not understand how JSON or Parse and JSON or Stringify works. Now, probably you will be trying to do test object to 2 dot sample undefined, and it will throw a runtime exception because it doesn't contain sample undefined. Okay. So now, second important takeaway from this video is, if a deeply nested object or a normal object contains functions, or normal objects keys point to a function or to a variable called a value of undefined, then do not use json.parse and json.stringify to deep copy that object. Okay, this is second takeaway. First takeaway was, if it points to date, do not use json.parse and json.stringify. Now let's go to the third. Okay, third question. So I'm invoking the function. Same here. I also am in the first key in the inside the object is pointing to a function, same above function itself, and the second is pointing to infinity, third is pointing to nin. Nin you might know already, not a number. Any number, anything that is not a number will get an nin. Like if you try to sometimes whenever you're trying to do string and adding it to a number, in such cases you will get some errors like this is not a number. Okay, so nin stands for that. Infinity you might know already, it's something from the math class where there are scenarios where you want to compare some a number to the highest number or to the lowest number. In such cases we'll use infinity. These are all JS ES6 built-in symbols. Okay, now test object 2, same I'm doing json.parse json.stringify of test object 1, logging both. Okay, by now you might have a fair understanding what will be the output. You see sample function did not return anything in case of test object 2, and infinity and not a number are pointing to null. Okay, I believe most of you might have guessed this. At least for function, you might have guessed infinity and nin. You are seeing we are getting null. Okay. So again, third takeaway from this video is, whenever there is an object which is nested or deeply nested, which contains infinity, nan, or function, or new date object, okay, or undefined, then do not use json.parse and json.stringify to make a deep copy out of it. Okay, you know it's the normal way. If you do, it will be a shallow copy. You want a deep copy, and do not use this. Okay, now you know when not to use json.parse and json.stringify. Next question is, why this is happening? Okay, I believe most of you, if not more, at least 60 to 70% of you are happy now when not to, you know now when not to use JSON parse and JSON stringify. But very few of you would think why we cannot use it. Okay, why this becomes very essential is, unless you ask why in your mind, you will never find answer for all the question. And because there is a limitation, so someone can teach you, but there is no limitation on you yourself learning. Correct? So unless you ask this question, you'll not read about it, and when you not read about it, you will not know more topics which are around this. Okay, so I'll explain why this is failing, or why json.parse json stringify is unable to make a deep copy of those objects that contain function, infinity, nin, date, undefined, etc. Okay, I found very interesting and wonderful article on the web. So this is from freecodecamp.org. Okay, JSON.object example, stringify and parse method explained. I would have explained the gist of it, but I wanted to promote whoever has written it because it's a wonderful article. Please do read it thoroughly. Okay, so let's see what is actually JSON.stringify. The JSON.stringify method converts a JSON safe JavaScript value to a JSON compliant string. What are JSON safe values, one may ask. Let's make a list of all JSON unsafe values, and anything that isn't on the list can be considered as JSON safe. Okay, very simple way. I will come back here. See, you're trying to convert a function, in this case, into a string. With your common sense, you think, can you convert a function into a string? If it is converted, it will be of which form? Correct? Obviously, we cannot convert a function into string. So JSON or Stringify cannot convert a function into string. Same in case of undefined, same in case of infinity and NaN. Basically, a value which has a potential of getting converted into string, definitely we can convert. But there are some values which we cannot convert it into string. Okay. When you cannot convert it into a string, how will you parse it? So this entire operation will not be able, we cannot perform on certain objects like they mentioned here. Undefined, function, and ES6 symbols, and an object with a circular reference, like an object inside referring to object outside, that is called a circular reference. In all of these things, you will not be able to use JSON.parse and JSON.stringify to make a deep copy. In fact, you will not be able to use JSON.stringify itself. So there is no point of using JSON.parse. Okay. This article is very well written and they have clearly explained with the various different examples. I can run through it and I can try explaining, but my motto of this video series is not explaining the topics in depth. So I will pass on that responsibility to you. Please read it in depth. Okay. Because this you will understand a lot of things about JSON.parse and JSON.stringify after reading this wonderful article. Okay. Now let me come back to my series. So you saw all the third three questions. Now you know why JSON.parse and JSON.stringify cannot be used on certain objects. Now my last question for this video is how to make a deep copy of JSON unsafe values. Okay. Now you know some objects are JSON unsafe, like undefined, function, and date, and infinity, NaN. So these are JSON unsafe and we cannot convert it into JSON or stringify. I mean JSON or stringify cannot convert that into a string. Then JSON.parse and JSON.stringify approach will fail to when to make it a deep copy. Now question is how you can overcome, because obviously there will be some objects which have function infinity NaN inside them and we want to make a deep copy of it. Correct? How do you convert? Interviewer will definitely ask this question. Answer to that is one, you copy all values manually one after the other. Simple example is like this, where you do test object, test object one dot sample function is equals to test object two dot sample function, something like this, where you manually copy one value after another. Okay, this will definitely work. And this manual copying cannot be used always. It can be used in those scenarios where it can be used in those scenarios where object is static. In such cases, you can use. If it is a dynamic, then this may not work all the time. Second way is using basically doing the same. Rather doing it manually, you will try do it via recursive approach, where you can actually iterate through key and values, where you create a new key in the new object and copy the keys value into that object one after the other. I'm not going to explain that in this video, but that is another approach. Third is using the built-in libraries like Lodash. Not built-in libraries, there are some third-party libraries like Lodash. Okay, so I'm not going to explain that also how Lodash works. You can just search it on Google. You get a lot of videos on how Lodash works and how to implement that in React.js, React Native, Angular, Vue, etc. In all these frameworks, you'll be able to use Lodash. Basically, Lodash uses a recursive approach itself, and since it is very common library used across a lot of projects, you need not to worry about the implementation. You can straight away go and use it. But all these approaches, they will add some complexity into the program. I mean, they are costly. Basically, whether you check the object recursively and copy one after the another, or you use Lodash, or you copy value one after the other manually, all of this is going to be some costly operation. So use it mindfully. Make a deep copy only whenever it's necessary. I did not have this question in my mind, but I did not plan for it, but I'm going to ask you why arrays and objects are deep copied and primitive types. Okay, this is shallow. Why primitive types are deep copied? So primitive type, example is number, string. Okay, this arrays and objects, why they are made a deep copy and why primitive types are made shallow copy. Sorry, why primitive types made a deep copy and why array objects are actually getting shallow copied. This is also another important question which should come to your mind as soon as I start explaining this topic. Whole purpose of my video series is to make you inquisitive about the topics you read, so that you read a lot and you learn a lot of things stuffs by yourself. Okay, The most simplest and the common sense answer to this, even if you're not read, you can think of it. Arrays and primitive types like number and strings are being deep copied. So let x equal to let x equal to y, where x and y are numbers. After you copy y value into x and y are disconnected. They are altogether different memory locations is allocated for that. They are different. But whereas arrays and objects, they point to the same reference. If you do is equal to like this, correct? Without using JSON or parsing JSON or Stringify, if you just have this, this is a shallow copy, correct? Why this is made is, see, JavaScript is a language which doesn't have a memory of its own. Unlike C, Java, or C++, which directly interact with memory, JavaScript is something that generally runs on a browser, correct? Where compilers are written with C++, Python, etc., which internally interact with the memory. So, kind of we can say they have some amount of memory shortage. So, where copying an object into another object, if it is, let's say, it's a very big object, if you every time if you start making a deep copy of objects and arrays, you end up using lot of memory space, correct? So to avoid that, JavaScript's default behavior towards objects and arrays when it comes to copying is shallow copy. Only when needed by you, you make it a deep copy. Okay, that's the JavaScript approach. So it somewhat saves the memory for whenever the application is running. Okay, so 5 questions we have learned in this video series. They are very, very important questions. Please do practice them. I'll try to add all of this to my Git repository so that you can copy the question directly and execute it on your mission. Okay, thank you so much for watching my video. I know it extended close to 15 to 16 minutes, but I had no go other than explaining all the topics in one video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my video, please do like it on YouTube. If you think it is very informative and you want your friends to get benefited out of it, please do share it with them. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel Uncommon Geeks on YouTube. If you want me to make any videos on a particular topic that you have not seen on my channel so far, please do mention that in comment section. I'll try to make video on it. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you in my next video.